Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of Let's Talk About It. I can't believe I've gotten to episode 10. This is impressive for someone personally who, has a difficult time sometimes with seeing things through. I think it's just I have so many ideas and so many things that I want to do that I kind of have a tendency to hop around a little bit. But I'm working on it, kind of like figuring some things out as I go along. I will say though, however, that the podcast thing um, feels right, I guess. And I think that's where, as a cue, like to continue to keep doing it because I do enjoy doing it. And I'm not just doing it because I felt like I had to, which is a whole new like way of doing things for me. So, slowly like learning how to navigate life a little bit more effectively, if you will. All right. So today's episode is a monologue. I wanted to share with you guys some tools that I've been finding helpful as of late with healing overall. I'm pretty open about most things because I do believe that my experiences are things that can also help other people. And so I think that's why I do share some of the stuff that I've been going through. Not all of it because I don't want to, it's not TMI time. But I like sharing the essence of the experiences that I have been having. And truth be told, I have been struggling a fair bit with isolation. It's been really difficult for me personally. In the beginning of like March 2020, I mean, I think I was a little like fearful, I suppose, just from a confusion standpoint. Like I think a lot of us were of like the uncertainty of the future of what was going to happen. And so that left me feeling really uncomfortable. Especially financially, and just like the future of my career, how I was going to make cash flow work, because unfortunately I'm not eligible for any government support during COVID. Trust me, I have tried. So I'm not eligible for any of it, which I think really stressed me out on a whole other level when it came to that type of stuff. So financial insecurity, being worried about the future from that perspective. Even my career took a complete turn, a pretty drastic one, if you will. I was an active practicing naturopathic doctor. I am not anymore. I am still a naturopathic doctor. I will never not be one. I can't just take that title off. However, I am not actively practicing anymore. Instead, I decided to take the opportunity to kind of explore some things that I had always been curious about doing, but had never really taken seriously, if you will, or had focused on as much as I was able to during COVID. So it's been a big career transition for me too, with all of that. I've had a lot of uncertainty with my living situation. I've lived in 3 different provinces over the past 2 years. And I am an avid traveler. I usually am on a plane every 6 to 8 weeks, usually. And I haven't been on a plane in almost 2 years. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that too, because I know I'm not the only avid traveler in the world. There's been a lot of shifts, a lot of transitions, a lot of things to get used to. The isolation aspect, because I am someone that does enjoy going out. I like being around people. I do like my alone time, but being around people, to me, it is necessary for my mental health, in certain quantities, of course. So in the beginning, I was okay, I guess, with being not in contact with people, not in physical proximity to people. And I think I got a little bit too used to it, where it became a comfort zone thing. I started developing social anxiety at one point in time, where I was afraid to leave my apartment for a little bit, which was definitely I still have fragments of that, and I'm sharing this because, again, I know because I've had conversations with many of you that that's an experience that you have also had to varying degrees as well. So that's something that I've been working on. I already have a tendency to anxiety as well as depression, and over the past 2 years, I've noticed, as I look back now, the slow sinking of the ship, if you will. It's been a struggle for me personally, just dealing with everything, and just going from like the beginning of what I had mentioned to you guys of where my fears were coming from to where they are now. They have shifted a little bit in terms of some of the things, but I think a lot of like the fears that I do have now are more internal related, which I mean is a blessing on a certain respect, because it's allowing me to be able to work through some really like kind of deep rooted insecurities or fears, limiting beliefs of mine that I have done a very good job of sweeping under the rug and just ignoring for a very long time. So I've been also working through that stuff. I have to say, I think I've been at some pretty low points in my life before. But I feel like this is probably like the past month or two has probably been my lowest that I think I've ever experienced. I've experienced the death of someone who was very important to me at one point in time in my life last year. That really impacted me. Again, like the uncertainty, trying to grow a new business, the stress around that, just so many things. There's been a lot of stuff going on, and we all go through stuff, right? I'm definitely, I'm aware that we all have our things that we deal with. And so, I think I'm just sharing that just to add to the background as to where I'm at right now, with some things, and why I've kind of like taken a path, to explore, some of these healing aspects, that I never really have before in as much detail, as I have been recently. So that is why this talk is coming up based on all of that stuff. I will also, like, before I go into talking about some of the tools and strategies that I've been integrating to help myself, is to be very clear that I am not doing this alone. I have a really great support network of people. My boyfriend is incredible, and my sister is incredible. I have some wonderful friends, so I have a resource of people who are actively around me, or that I can actively talk to. And I also regularly speak to a therapist. This therapist in particular, I have been seeing for a number of years now. And so I have a good relationship with him. And so I would not advise you, if you can relate to, hitting some rock bottom moments, I would not advise you to do this alone. I don't think that you should. I think that it's important to have people around you and with you while you're going through all of this stuff and while you're working through it, because never underestimate the power of community and connection. I do believe that it's really important. And I would also encourage you to seek therapy if that is something that you do require. And I will mention some things that I have been doing with my therapist lately that I have actually found to be really powerful in terms of making positive transformations in my life. So I will also say too that if you guys haven't listened to any of the previous podcast episodes, I would highly encourage you to do so, because a lot of the things that I've actually been working on are also things that have been discussed with some of our previous podcast guests, which is really cool. So I will be kind of peppering it a little bit too, like some of the things that, were mentioned in some of these podcast episodes, because I've actually been finding them to be really helpful for myself in terms of integrating some of these tools and some of the learning lessons that I've had over the past few months or so. So first off, I've always been into yoga and I've dabbled with meditation in the past. Haven't been like overly serious about integrating meditation on a level that I've ever found to be therapeutic, if you will. I find like it's a good like little reset, but that's kind of about it. Lately, though, I actually came across a person called Sadhguru. He is a yogi. He has a few retreat centers. He has a few books. I've read 2 of his books so far, and he also has an app. And I've been following along his Ishikriya Meditation. And it's a chanting meditation, or like a repeating of words meditation, which I have found actually really helpful. I've been doing it every night before I go to bed. It's almost like it's not a trance meditation, but I am actually really enjoying it. So that's something that I've been doing, that I've been finding helpful. He's also just following along with his stuff has helped me reintegrate yoga back into my life. And not that I was always about yoga from the fitness aspect, but now I'm trying to integrate it more in a way that for like the healing effects or the mental health effects of yoga. So I've been integrating like some basic hatha yoga postures into my day as well, into a very simple yoga practice, nothing too intense right now. But yeah, that's what I've been doing as well. So hatha yoga and meditations, which have both been from Sadhguru, have been very helpful so far. And Stephanie Winters, as well as Jolene D'Entremont, both touched on the power of yoga as well as breath work, and being consistent with doing these things. So if you want to learn more about the power of breath work, of yoga, how you can integrate it into your day, being consistent, if you need a little inspiration around that type of stuff, then I would definitely suggest checking out those 2 podcast episodes, because I did find it to be really helpful. Stephanie was talking about the identification of with certain things. So identifying with, I am like someone who exercises frequently, or I am not, which I found really interesting too, just to evaluate my identifications with yoga, which I think, just given my past, are probably a little bit more unique, I would say, than others, just given my history of exercise bulimia. But I've been working on that. So it's all a learning curve. We're all working on stuff here. But yeah, I found that to be a really powerful message that was really helpful for me to realize how I was identifying with exercise. And then maybe why I wasn't so motivated sometimes to be doing things, because it wasn't coming from a place of self-care. It was coming from quite the opposite. And then also with Jolene just talking about, the power of breath work, which perfectly integrated with the readings that I had been doing with Sadhguru, with the books by Sadhguru, that I found really handy. So I would definitely suggest looking into those things, because that's kind of been like the foundation of a lot of the other stuff that I've been up to. Next, I've been allowing myself to be more creative. So creativity to me comes from a bit of a human design element, which Sana on episode 9 had discussed human design with us. And there are elements of human design. Human design to me is almost like astrology, in a sense where it's like it's always the tip of the iceberg of trying to understand more and more and more about it, and how you can actually apply it to your day-to-day life. And so what I've noticed lately is that allowing myself just to have complete freedom to be creative is really important for me personally. I'm a 4/6 splenic manifestor in human design. So having like my own outlet of my own ideas is something that for me personally is really important. And I noticed as well that, I think just because of the world that we live in too, that I was always responding to other people or being influenced by other people. And I even noticed that with like how I've done things in my business in the past has been based on what other people have told me to do, as opposed to how I want to do things. So I've been giving myself this space to kind of learn that stuff, which is its own form of creativity for me. So formulating products, just being creative with writing is something that I enjoy as well. I also do like mandala drawing, so I like coloring, stuff like that. I do really enjoy doing those types of things. So that's been great, and I will kind of segue into that too, talking about social media, which we did with Mal Ryan, and we will talk about that a little bit more in a future podcast episode as well. But social media is not a healthy place for me to be. And I think I'm trying to learn how can I make it a healthier place for me. But I do find that more often than not, it's a triggering place for me, which is not a bad thing. Never think that triggers are bad. I think triggers are opportunities for you to grow, for you to learn. And that's great and all, but it's also overwhelming sometimes when it's like everything's constantly triggering you. So I have actually made a point to lessen my social media exposure. That does include muting a lot of people on my feed, or unfollowing, but I think I've actually started muting people more than anything else, just because it's not that their stuff is offensive to me or negatively triggering, but it influences me. And as someone, again, human design stuff, as someone as a manifester, it kind of messes with my creative potential. I personally find, and I've really noticed that too. So I've taken out all those things that I've noticed that I've been influenced by, and I've kind of backburnered them for now until I feel like I can go back to them from a space of knowing or understanding, just being that much more conscious of how much of a sponge am I being to other people's influence. So that's been a big deal. I think even like to expand that too, to not just me personally, but like I personally think that if we all stopped listening to the news, that the world would be a better place. I think just recognizing those things that, we might be getting too involved in, and taking a step back will kind of help you recalibrate. It helped me recalibrate, to help me realize, what I actually wanted to do. Like some of the new products that I just recently formulated would not have been formulated had I been continuously on Pinterest and Instagram, looking and being exposed to what other people are doing, what other companies are doing. It's just, it's overwhelming. And there's always this like not enoughness that I found was going on. So, I've cut myself off from that. And I've taken a step back from it. That not enoughness thing I'm going to talk about in a second too, in 1 minute. So the next one is exercise. I know obviously exercise is great. We all know this, if we're doing it in moderation, of course. When I say exercise, I am not a high intensity exerciser by any means. My body does not like high intensity exercise. In fact, I find that it transitions my body to almost feel more inflamed. And I've noticed that time and time again, because I've you see these people like, oh yeah, HIIT workouts are great. Or like, you should do like intense cardio and then add in these weights and just reps and sets and whatever. And that's great. And all if someone is into that stuff. I, however, am not. And I have tried and tried and tried over and over and over again, thinking that, oh, this is good. Everybody else likes this, so I should try to learn how to like it too, or, I can get results from doing this or what have you. And again, manifestor related stuff here, but that just doesn't work for me. I need to beat to my own drum. And exercise is definitely one of those things that I've noticed with that. So my body composition has never been better than when I am doing things like yoga and regular walking. And recently I've kind of added in some spinning. But with the spin, that circle thing at the bottom, I'm not a spinner. I don't know anything about this except how to sit on the bike. And even that I'm probably not doing it right. Just to turn it up, I turn it up fairly high. GNC, I think is what they're called, Cycling Network on YouTube. I only do the 20-minute ones. I'm not really interested in doing any more, but I've noticed some pretty major transformations in terms of my body composition and also how I feel. So that's been great too. Walking in particular, though, I want to talk about that because walking, especially outdoors, is so powerful for mental health. There's a reason why there's forest bathing or forest therapy, especially in Japan, has become a really big deal. It also helps support your immune system. There's so many great things about getting outside and walking outside, being in touch with nature, that I think as humans living in the society that we live in, we've definitely lost touch with our integration with nature, and we are of nature. So getting outside and being in nature as much as possible is like the utmost best thing you could possibly do for your mental health. And, I noticed it immediately too, that when I'm out walking in the bush, I feel so much better. It's just like I can breathe again. That's kind of how I feel. So yeah, I hope that you guys experience that too, or that if you don't walk outside regularly, that you start doing it, and perhaps you'll notice that as well. Also with walking, cycling is also the same thing here too, a little bit with yoga as well, where there's the left side and the right side. So you've got the movement of the gait, or, when you're spinning, and the left side, right side integration kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which is called EMDR. And so EMDR is the eye movement therapy technique. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I'm just going to tell you about my experience of it. But what I find great about the EMDR technique is that the whole idea of the integration of the left brain and the right brain, or the left hemisphere or the right hemisphere, yin and yang type thing, which, like, if we want to kind of go a little bit more from like a spiritual or traditional medicine perspective, that whole yin and yang integration, which I feel like a lot of people are out of touch with, masculine, feminine, that not male, female, masculine, feminine, and the synergistic integration of the two to complement one another, not to have one more dominant than the other. And then this is where like walking has that like hypnotic left right movement, spinning, same thing. Yoga, you're always doing the left side and the right side. So there's this really interesting integration with these types of movements that then correlate and correspond with this EMDR. And so I've been doing EMDR with my therapist lately, and I have found it so helpful. And so what we do is, so we'll talk about an experience, and then, if something's kind of triggering for me, like, that made me really mad, for example, let's just say that one, then we take that through a cycle of the EMDR. And then it's like the finger. So you're moving your eyes horizontally back and forth as far to the left and as far to the right as you can go, and tracking as you go along. And then you do that a bunch of times. And then you do from the diagonal. So the upper left to the lower right, again, tracking as you go along. So you're following the person's finger, and then same from right to left. And then you kind of rest. Notice what comes up for you. It could be a physical experience. It could be a new emotion. It could be, whatever. A thought that kind of came into play there, what have you. And then whatever came up, that might need to be taken through another EMDR cycle. And I've been finding it really, really helpful. It's magic. It's magic. I can't describe it as any other way. I feel like it's magic. It's really helped me take a step back from being so involved in how I'm feeling, and also being able to bring up like past trauma, if you will, with feeling like I can do something about it, where I'm being actionable about it, because I feel like just simply talking about it doesn't really help me personally. I think I've over talked about a lot of things in therapy, and there's definitely a different way to work on things, and so the EMDR to me personally has been a huge transformation. I also, when I was working on the mindset lab, Bessel van der Kolk wrote The Body Keeps the Score is the book that Bessel van der Kolk had written, and it was kind of what inspired me creating the mindset lab. And he talks about EMDR in the book, I believe, or I was learning about EMDR at the time as well. And so I had kind of like touched on it a little bit, but I didn't really like go too deep into it. I do notice though that having a second person do the EMDR technique with you to be helpful. I know that there are also YouTube videos that you can find of like there's a moving dot across the screen, but I don't think it helps with the full range of the eye movements, although it could be something for you to check out if you're just curious about what it is. That maybe that would be helpful for you, but definitely finding a therapist who does do EMDR is not a bad idea. It's been super helpful for me personally. Okay, next, of course, I do want to talk about being sober curious. Yeah, I have been for a little while. I think just living on the East Coast, maybe. Also just being, I have a tendency to be the person that really enjoys going out. I always have been. I like the party. And so I definitely have always had regular alcohol intake in my life. Yeah. And so it's that was something that the sober curious movement and kind of learning a little bit more about it, because I think it's very easy for anybody. You don't, we're not talking about full blown alcoholism here. We're talking about a life that perhaps has too much an overconsumption of alcohol that is not I don't want to, let's just say is not necessary. Although for lack of a better term of how to describe that, because that's how I feel, where it's like, I don't feel that having alcohol in my day-to-day life is a bad thing. But I do question sometimes, like, or get concerned sometimes about my capabilities of just being able to have like just one drink. You know, it's like a bag of chips. You can't just have one chip. It's like drinks are similar to that too. And I think especially in social settings, which again goes back to human design, that I notice that more when I'm out and around other people, that I'm actually picking up on sacral energy of other people who have this like motor energy that I'm picking up on, that might make it that I end up eating or consuming more things than probably what I would if I were sitting alone by myself, as an example. Look that up in human design stuff if you're not sure what I'm talking about. But it is really interesting. So with alcohol intake, I had noticed that, especially during COVID, that my intake had slowly increased. And it was something for me just to be like, well, can I just go a few days without drinking and be okay with it? And I tried a little bit here and there, but then it's like, you go out and then everyone thinks you're pregnant if you're not having a drink, because it's unusual, right? And it just started to kind of bother me a little bit. Plus, too, it was like, well, can I not just have like, can I have just one beer and be happy with that? And then like move on with the rest of my evening and not have more than one. So that was a big question mark for me. exploring that whole concept of being sober curious, what that means, what that looks like in my life, if it could help positively transform things, not just from a physical health perspective, but also a mental health perspective. So Vanessa McAvoy had spoken to us about her journey to living a sober life. So she's been sober for, I forget how long now, I think over a year now, maybe almost 2 years, actually, sorry. Almost 2 years she's been sober. And then Jolene Donchemont also talked about her sober journey, where she's been sober for a little over 2 years now. And so I found those conversations to be super enlightening and very helpful for me, just to bring some more mindfulness into why I'm choosing to have a drink, and if I actually need one. So I would encourage you guys to read those or to listen to those podcasts if that is something that is of interest to you, because it definitely is for me. It still is. And I've definitely minimized my alcohol intake significantly, which has overall just helped me feel better. So I am grateful for that. And then lastly, what I do want to talk about is transit charts and birth charting. And that's where, speaking with Renata, so I believe that was episode 2, where we talked with Renata about birth charting. And shortly after that interview, I had a transit chart reading with Renata, and it was so fascinating. So the transit chart reading was for the 12 months. So this was like the end of November, I think I had it. And then so for the next 12 months to come. And I have actually noticed, I mean, I'm always a skeptic on things, right? Because it's like, if someone says something to you, does that then mean that you're going to try to make it happen in your life? Right? I always have that question. But I have to say that I don't think that to be the case, because a lot of these things that have been happening are not things that I would have wanted to happen, or are things that are very fearful for me. Like speaking my mind, like learning to overcome the fear of offending people, which, you know, I think that's also another reason too, side note, why social media is so triggering for me, because I want to speak my truth. I want to share how I feel about things that I believe in, or that I, you know, feel very passionate about, without offending people, which is kind of an oxymoron. Like, that doesn't really work. You can't, it's kind of impossible. So that's been something that I've been learning. And especially recently, it's been more a thing where I have really noticed that I've been less sensitive towards the criticism of others, if you will, or feeling like I'm offending them, which is very liberating for me. Again, human design stuff, I'm not here to be influenced by other people in that capacity. So it's more that, you know, I initiate and either people are going to be on board with me or they're not. And so with me just doing me, I'm either going to help support people or they're just going to walk away. And the fear of people walking away has always held me back from just kind of living my life the way I want to. So yeah, it's been very liberating lately, and that definitely showed up in my transit chart of what to experience. And I've been noticing, like, recently, these shifts, like very recently, like over the past few days, I think, which is why that inspired like this particular conversation, that I've just been seeing that happen a little bit more. And also the reintegration of spirituality into my life, of energetics, just bringing out that understanding of energetics, because I think we all inherently have it. I just think that our logic or our egos overwhelm us so much that we have troubles listening to it. And so I've noticed lately as well that it's waking up of this other side of me, that, you know, it's almost as if it's just been dormant. It's like a language that I know that I've always known how to speak. But I just didn't realize that I knew. So I've been noticing that starting to happen as well. And that showed up in my chart, which I found really interesting. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to leave on that too is with transit charts. I highly encourage you guys to go get one. Renata does still do transit chart readings. So her Instagram handle is @align with Renata, or you can go check out her links and stuff are all in the second podcast episode. Yeah, I just found like just having an awareness of what's to come has been really helpful. I think just because then it makes me feel a little bit more secure in my experiences. Because at this point in time in my life, I feel like I need that. And so it's been really helpful in terms of how I've been navigating things as I've been going along. So I would definitely suggest that you get a transit chart reading because it was so freaking cool. And I will definitely be getting another one after this year, just because like so far, even after like 2 months in of this transit chart reading, and I'm already noticing like some major where I was like, that's interesting that you said that. That would be a great pipe dream, but I don't think that'll ever happen. And it's starting to happen. Yeah, it's fascinating. Very, very cool. Anyway, so those are all the things that I've been doing that I've been finding helpful as of late. And I hope that you find some of those things helpful for you too. As always, if you have any questions about any of the things that I spoke about, just let me know. I'm more than happy to try to send you resources. If you're looking for some of any kind. And yeah, just know that you're worth it. You're worth it, because when you're operating on all cylinders and feeling really good in your life and, truly experiencing joy, you can't not positively impact other people. Nobody benefits from you not being well. So please always take care of yourself. And yeah, thank you very much for being here. And I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.